Hello and welcome to Health Coach Talk. Today, we are talking all about how you present yourself in the world. If you're a health coach, if you're a wellness entrepreneur, if you're just getting started, or if you're a seasoned professional, you may be interested in how you grow your business. Perhaps you have shied away from marketing because you have a lot of fears. Well, we're going to dig into how to overcome those fears, how to have a vision to go forward with confidence. And our guest today is someone who really needs no introduction in the world of health coaching. His name is Robert Nodder. Let me tell you about Robert. Robert Nodder mentors coaches to create an understandable system to consistently find clients and grow their income doing what they love. He was one of the first business coaches for health coaches, and he has been helping clients create fulfilling businesses for 20 years. He has a unique approach, which also incorporates confidence building and is based on quantum principles and mindset enhancement. He is also a health coach himself. He studied at the Institute for Integrative Nutrition, and that's where he created and led their marketing training program for over 10 years. He's been instrumental in creating visibility and recognition for health coaching. So here's my conversation with Robert Nodder. Enjoy. It is my pleasure to welcome to Health Coach Talk, Robert Nodder. You are no stranger to the world of health coaching, and you have some wonderful insights into how coaches can build their practices or can get hired if they want to work for medical practices or corporate wellness, for example. And I want to point out before we start that the tips that Robert is going to share will not just be restricted to health coaches. So if you are listening and you are not a health coach, you will also find this conversation very valuable for the work that you do. So welcome, Robert.
Thank you. It's such an honor to be here. I'm so inspired by all that you're doing and all that we can do together to make the world a better place. And I'm delighted to be here to inspire your listeners.
Thank you. You have inspiring messages for how to build a business, how to be confident at the onset. And it really resonates with me because it's exactly what we teach. So I'd love for you to just start off by sharing just, what your philosophy is and how this notion of believing in yourself is so critical.
Well, when so many coaches and health and wellness professionals, they have this burning desire in their heart to make a difference in the world. And they sit down and they think they're going to go learn the marketing and all these different things to do. But the brain goes, oh, wait a second. This isn't familiar to me. I'm just supposed to be coaching and healing and helping people. So we sit down to work on something. And, I think at the end of the day, what people want is they want freedom. They want predictability. They want safety. And so they sit down to grow their practice and work on the marketing, but the mind says, oh, no, I don't know that, or imposter syndrome, or I can't charge that. So what I find is that, I work with tens and tens of thousands of clients, and the core set of belief systems that you have about what you can or can't do is what you will accomplish, because what the brain does is it tries to weigh the options in terms of, okay, so I'm going to sit down now to put together a workshop. No, I'm not a good speaker. I can't do that. Someone else is more successful. So what coaches and healers and wellness professionals have to understand is that about 80% of your success in your practice is mindset, and about 20% is marketing. So the first step is to become the conscious observer of where you are and what you want to accomplish. And I can certainly tell you that in my work with all of my clients, my wonderful students, that what you tell yourself and what you act, think, speak, and feel is exactly what you'll get. Because as Einstein once said, this isn't philosophy, this is physics. Like attracts like, and what you focus on is what you create. So I believe that as wellness professionals sit down to grow a practice, they have to get very clear about understanding that they're the architects of their business and of their life. And every action they take, every word they speak, every thought they think, every feeling they feel is synergistically and holistically and from a functional perspective culminating into what they attract in their business. So in order to create the success you want, you have to believe that it's possible. And you have to, just like when you think about your favorite snack food, like I love guacamole and hummus, and I can close my eyes and think about it and my mouth waters, even though the food's not in front of me. So really at the core of what I believe is that your mind doesn't know the difference between what's real and what's imagined. So in order to attract the things that you want in your practice, certainly have to get wonderful training, like the training that you provide, put together your marketing plan, communications plan. But what you think is possible is exactly what you will get, both consciously and unconsciously. So the work that I do, what makes it so special and near to my heart is that obviously we're all here making a difference, but I help people take a look at what's going on below the surface and the unconscious mind. Those old beliefs, those old habits, those old patterns, the 4 times that someone said, oh, no, you're not the right coach for me. Those all leave imprints in your belief systems, but they also leave energetic sort of blocks in your body. So the important part is one has to become very aware of being in control of what they do and how they think in each moment, and really come back to being aligned with what they want to attract as they sit down to work on their marketing. Because you can sit down to put together a plan to get your next clients or your workshop or your blog. But if those little nagging beliefs, oftentimes very unconsciously, below the surface, what they're doing is they're telling the brain what's okay and what's not okay, which is then going to affect the actions you take. So you have to become willing to look at those things that might scare you a little bit, getting out of your comfort zone, but understanding at the end of the day, you have everything to gain and nothing to lose. And that boogie bear, the boogie monster, whatever that's under the bed really isn't there at all. It's just a system of thoughts that if you can reduce those and replace those that are no longer serving you, and then plant that healthy garden in your mind of things that you want to have happen and begin to feel it as being possible, everything starts to turn around and your practice takes off instantly.
Wow, this really resonates with me because I've seen it so many times with our graduates where there's just a fear. There's a fear of getting started, and they present obstacles such as, I don't have a website. I don't have business cards. I don't have a client agreement. I don't have a script for the first session. I don't know where to go to get clients. And it's always, I don't know. And at the base of that is behind that is I'm afraid, and I'm afraid of failure. And it's constantly also judging compared to others, like, oh, this person is better than I am. They know how to do this, and I don't. So it's that fear that keeps rising up, and then they feel defeated. And so then usually what they do is they think they need more training. And so then they'll go, take more courses as if it's a knowledge deficit. And I always tell them they have it right now to launch. And if they want to get some more continuing ed, that's great. But let's work on the things that are going on inside, which you're describing, these beliefs.
Mm-hmm. I think back to, I've now been a health coach for 21 years and a business coach for 20 years. And I was not the first person in my health coach training program to get clients. I was at home getting the perfect raspberry on my brochure. I was thinking of the best name for my business and practicing my sugar lecture, for no one except for me. And one day I sat back and I thought, why am I doing this? What's really going on? And so something people might not know about me is when I was a kid, I was really into like science and cooking and art, and really didn't have a lot of friends and kind of kept to myself because that's how you stayed safe. But the things that served you once upon a time that maybe kept you from being rejected or bullied or being visible, or the fears that are there, they're no longer serving you. But your brain, what it does is it's constantly evaluating, I'm going to sit down and take a particular action to enhance my life, enhance my business, but how do I see that as either a threat or a benefit? So when you can sit down and take a look at the thoughts that are in your head and really begin to become the objective observer, which is what I did, like, well, what is there to be afraid of? So I'm nervous to give this talk, but what's the worst that could happen? So I actually did give my talk. I got no clients whatsoever. I got permanent marker on the side of my face. I spilled tea on someone's shoe, and I came home feeling very defeated and called my mom and dad. And I said, you know what? If something didn't work right the first time, it just means there's time for course correction and do it differently the next time. And that's the thing we all have to remember too, is that the brain wants to keep us with what it knows because that's how we're programmed, to keep yourself safe and keep yourself with what's familiar. But the familiar is not always where you want to be, because if you keep doing all the same things you've done up until now, you'll keep getting the same results. So you have to be willing to look at those things that frighten you and begin to reason with them. So maybe someone says, "Oh, I'm not a good writer. I really shouldn't send out a newsletter. I'm going to go take a different course first, and then I'll be ready to send out a newsletter." Well, the brain has to think, "Well, okay, great. I'm keeping you safe by doing that." But if you ask yourself, what is this costing me to keep putting off contacting that referral partner, or to keep putting off my talk, or keep putting off going to the networking event? And you realize it is costing you income for your practice, peace of mind, security, and the impact that all of us as health and wellness professionals want to accomplish. The brain then goes, "Oh, wait a second. I thought I was helping because I was keeping you from being seen. But in fact, this whole thing about you left your corporate job in New York City, which is what I did, and you have to pay rent, which is not necessarily always cheap in New York. Well, you're keeping yourself from this whole place of possibility." So then the brain starts to change its connections, and it starts to change how, what you think about, creates connections in the brain. When you keep thinking the same negative thoughts over and over, you reinforce those biological and biochemical and, those structures in the mind. So you have to begin to stop looking at these four things that you think aren't going to work, and you broaden your horizon of what's possible. And for some people, that's really a lot about mental weightlifting. I call it kind of like, it's like brain exercising in some ways, because those patterns that you've had going on up until now, that they're just going to keep you with what you have now. And as I said earlier, if you want to accomplish something in your practice or in your life, you have to begin to imagine and visualize what that could be. And then I think where this, a lot of the whole law of attraction thing and positive thing, I think where oftentimes that could be enhanced is you have to really feel what's possible and feel that you can do it. And one of the assignments I give all of my clients and students is every morning, at least for 3, 4, 5 minutes, imagine your day going just as you would like it to be and the positive outcomes, but not just in your mind. Feel how it will feel as you have that discovery call, that consultation. The client says yes. Feel that in your energy systems in your body. And then the brain goes, "Oh, this feels better than what I was feeling before. If they're not going to be able to afford it, I need to go learn aromatherapy first, and then I'll be a perfect health coach." So it's really just about stepping into that person you want to be. And it's kind of like trying on a pair of shoes. You get a nice new pair of shoes, and it kind of hurts the first few times. Maybe you have to put on a Band-Aid, and then eventually your foot just slips right into it. And for me, public speaking was something I was horrified to do. But now I've headlined lectures at Lincoln Center for 2,000 people, and I would never thought I could do that. And what I can tell you, Sandy, I know you'll agree, is that what separates entrepreneurs and coaches and wellness professionals who are successful is that they take action in spite of what their brain sometimes tells them and the fears that are getting in the way. And you don't have to jump out of an airplane if you're afraid of heights. You just first think about the airplane in your mind, and then you maybe just look at a picture of the airplane. It's kind of like gradually stepping into incremental action as you look at the fears and then reason with them. So you see that once what might have scared you doesn't. And then as the brain begins to create those feelings and those connections around how good it will feel, once it comes into that place of those 10 new clients, or getting hired by that physician to work in their office, or doing that successful launch of your cleanse or your group program, it begins to notice that, "Oh, wait a second, I'm feeling better." And then the thoughts shift, the actions shift, and the habits change. And then you begin to, again, become in alignment with that which you want to track. And as Einstein said, like attracts like.
This is such wonderful information. You said a couple things that I want to circle back to because they really resonated. This is how I taught people, and whether it was in the context of helping them to stop a panic attack or do anything that they were afraid of, and that is to ask yourself, what's the worst thing that can happen? And many people object to that line of thinking, but because you're going to go negative. But once you go out there and you picture, okay, I'm giving a talk, what's the worst thing that can happen? And then you pull yourself back from the ledge, like, oh, I can cope with that. Like, what if, what if everybody thinks I'm the worst speaker ever and I get negative ratings and I'm not asked back? And then, well, what's the worst thing that could happen in 10 years? Will I remember this even in 10 years? So there's many ways that you can do that. And so I love that you are using that technique and teaching that process, because it's so effective, especially for things like giving a talk, which I find so many coaches are afraid of because now the group coaching is growing and they're often asked by doctors, can you lead a group? And many of them are terrified. Well, I don't know how to do this. I don't have the skills. And they're still thinking like they have to be performing, like they're getting on stage and singing and dancing, as opposed to facilitating a group.
And that's the thing too. When I think about marketing your practice, and I know you give a lot of wonderful trainings at the school, and um, it's not that complicated to sit down and review the tools you've learned on how to write a sales email or, the scripts that you're given to write a talk. But what you really have to think about is who will I become once I do this? And what is it worth to me to step into that next version of who I'm meant to become? I mean, think about it. I spent all this time and money investing to be a health coach, and I was sitting at home just waiting for the perfect time to get into it. And for all of you listening, you have to really connect into that place in your heart that led you to enroll to be part of this program or do whatever you do and the helping work that you do, and realize that the things that might scare you now, like you said, Sandy, you won't even remember what that was, maybe even 5 weeks from now. So we have to stop catastrophizing everything and really come back into, all right, so this part doesn't feel good. But the thing is, so many people are so comfortable in the discomfort they have of, I don't know enough, I can't give a talk, imposter syndrome, comparison. That's certainly what I did. I was comparing myself to everyone else in my program as a health coach. Of course, they're going to have clients. They're already a nurse. They've got access. And my mentor was like, Robert, everybody started without clients and they got their first client somehow. It's just like riding a bike. You put the training wheels on first, and eventually the training wheels come off, and then it's just memory. It's like my nephew actually is a very successful dancer. And I said, how do you get on stage with these pop stars and like do this like 2-hour show? He's like, you practice it so much and you imagine it in your mind before you're even doing it, that the mind just is on board because you've seen it as going successful and the body remembers. And I think that's something that we have to do. It's certainly what I do as a marketing coach, is I help people to create the energy systems in their body and mind, remembering before it actually happens. So it's like I'm projecting that this already occurred and I'm remembering it in the present moment, even though it didn't occur yet, but I'm acting as if it did, because then the body goes, oh yeah, I got this. Does that make sense how I sort of phrase that? Yeah, it's mind-boggling, but it's so
Yes.
simple
Yeah.
at the same time,
Yeah. Yeah. And you also mentioned gradual approximations. So you start with baby steps. And it sounds like what you're saying is that first step is to picture it. And that is exactly what I used to do when I was a psychologist and I was working with people who had phobias and they had severe fears. And we would start by just looking at it. And there's some classic experiments, kids who were afraid of dogs, and they just started with very slowly, looking at a picture of a dog and then teaching them breathing at the same time. So can you say more about how somebody who has these fears of getting started or fear of launching a group program or being interviewed by a doctor or approaching a medical practice and how they can do these slow, gradual approximations to their goal?
Yeah. What I also, it's all related here too, is that, I find that, let's say an example, if someone wants to reach out to a collaborative partner, potentially do some work together, and they go, well, they're already really established and why are they going to want me as a health coach? I just got certified. But what you have to first do is notice the feeling. So I always tell my clients and students, when you're sitting down to work on something and something is just not meshing, notice what you're feeling right then in that moment. Maybe it's fear, maybe it's anxiety, maybe it's comparison, because the fear or the feeling, it's first triggered by a thought.
Yeah.
So when you tell yourself something, the feeling doesn't occur first. The fear of connecting with the physician is not, the feeling doesn't come first. The thought of what below the surface, oh, I don't know enough. Can I do this? Are they going to like me? So what you have to do is you first stop and notice what you're feeling. And then you catch the thoughts that were there and you see them as outside of yourself as an objective observer.
Yeah.
And then you question them. You say, is this 100% factual? Do I know for sure that this doctor would not want to partner with me as a health coach? So you reason with it. You break it down into smaller chunks and you begin to notice that like I have a quote on my refrigerator that says, "No person, place, or thing has any power over me because I am the only thinker in my mind." So
Correct.
you notice the feelings, you notice the
Yeah.
thoughts, you reason with them, and then you say, okay, so maybe reaching out to that physician who runs this multifaceted practice is a little too scary, but how about I step back and I'm going to find my, let's say, PA friend and just going to take her to coffee just to ask her how might one approach connecting in medical practice. So you do really small things that maybe are a little scary still, but not jumping out of the plane. And then you step into it while the entire time noticing what you're thinking and feeling and telling yourself so that the unconscious pattern beliefs come up. So you see them before you allow them to unconsciously affect your actions. And then you just take a step back and you say, okay, well, I could never do that. This is real easy. This is a stretch. That's kind of where you want to go, where it's a little bit of a stretch.
Yeah. There's a saying, the more open you are to a no, the more likely you're going to get a yes. And
Uh-huh.
that's what you're describing, to rehearse getting a no and know that you can deal with it. And I love what you're saying. And so many of these strategies come from cognitive behavior therapy. I trained with the late, great Dr. Albert Ellis, and that's what he would say, where you catch these irrational thoughts and you argue, wait a minute, where's the evidence? Where's the evidence that this person is going to be judging me this way? Prove it. And then what would be the worst thing? So what if they do? I can tolerate, I can move on, I will learn from it. And we fail our way to success. Um,
It's interesting too. I have a client that I worked with a few months ago, and she came to me, struggling to build her practice. And she had a couple of clients here and there, but I said, well, what is it you really want? She goes, I just want peace of mind to know that I can afford to live the life that I want. And we didn't start with fixing her marketing. I said, what is it about your conversations and, your discovery calls? She goes, well, I don't say the fee in the session. I wait until afterwards and email it to them and say, get back to me when you can. So she and I spent a really wonderful chunk of time doing a lot of these types of approaches and a lot of the mindset work to really imagine what would it be like if she could own her worth. And a lot of the work I do in my practice is around money and owning your worth as well. And as we helped her sort of imagine saying what she was going to say her fees were and all these different things I coached her on, she was then able to earn more income in the following month than she'd earned all of last year. And a big part of her work is she wanted to earn a lot more income so she could have time to do volunteer work. She does volunteer work for women who have just come out of difficult relationships and things. And she said, Robert, I wouldn't have thought this, but the marketing isn't that complicated. I can follow the scripts and the systems, but if you believe you can do something and your brain can feel that it's possible, it works out. And even sometimes you might want to go down 45th Street to get to 10th Avenue, but somehow you go down 46th, but you still get to 10th Avenue. You have to be open to the fact that sometimes the universe brings us certain things. Like if I had not been laid off from one of my jobs in New York, I wouldn't have eventually registered to become a health coach. So if you can trust and be present, look at what the mind's telling you, have people around you who believe in you, and take those incremental actions, there's enough abundance and prosperity for everyone listening to this because the universe is on your side. You have to really, really believe that.
the power of beliefs. Can you comment about the connection between these beliefs and your energy? In other words, your physical presence? Because I find so many people who are not trusting in what they're saying, they're not feeling confident, and they're thinking, oh, this client doesn't like me, I don't know what I'm doing here. Their physical, that becomes so obvious in terms of their physical premise. They're slumped over, they're not confident, their voice is different, and that energy is being felt by the client. And so can you comment on that energy or presence?
I love that you're sharing with that because one of my hobbies, I study a lot about bioenergetics and different kinds of ways the body holds on to patterns. And the thing is, when you, like, for example, let's say someone is sitting down to have a consultation with someone and they're going to ask the right questions, promote their program. But in the back of their mind, they feel like they couldn't charge that because, well, let's say that, one of their well-meaning parents said money doesn't grow on trees and, oh, you just should get a regular job because this coaching thing. And so all these things are in the mind and the beliefs, they're there. But the thing is, when you think those things, it creates a feeling in the body. And if you feel that feeling enough and think that thought enough, it creates a lock somewhere in your energy system. So for me, when I thought about public speaking, it was always like so nervous right in the pit of my gut. There was not enough peppermint tea to get me through my first workshop that I gave. I probably had like 4 cups of it. But what I started to do with myself and with clients is I began to notice, well, if you're in that place of disbelief, it's going to show up on your physicality because your body and your energy systems will move and align and position themselves based on what you're feeling in your brain and how that connects with the energies that are flowing through your body. And the client, the person you're speaking with, there are subtle clues, even just as I think as humans, we're not even quite always aware of how much we perceive without seeing and thinking. We feel and we have, like when someone walks in the room, like, gosh, I just got a bad vibe from that person. They're actually giving off energy because negative thoughts, fears, doubts, those all have a wavelength. They can be measured with machines, meditation. So many studies have been done that show how the brain waves change. So it comes back to what I said earlier, too, that if you have all those fears and worries and doubts, it's going to show up in your body. It's going to show up on your face. It's going to show up in how you speak. So you have to, again, before that consultation, imagine it going exactly as you would like and feel as if it is, not just picture it, feel it, because then the places where you feel the confidence will begin to rise to the surface, and the places where you feel pulled away from your center, you can't think a negative thought and a positive thought at the same time.
That is so, so true. And many people are they're concerned because at the end of the day, they're not comfortable with sales, even the word sales. They think of a snake oil salesperson, someone who's going to try and just push something on you that you don't want. Mm-hmm. And really, you have something that people do want and do need, and that's tied into your mission to help people get healthier. So can you comment on that sense of like, oh, there's something wrong, it's too salesy? And I hear someone, I don't want to be too salesy.
Yeah. Well, when I have clients or students say that to me, I say, okay, well, I ask them, well, what's the fear below that I don't want to be salesy? And they'll say, oh, well, I had someone be pushy to me and didn't feel good. Okay, so what's the fear below that fear? And when we kind of go down the ladder a little bit, they'll say like, oh, wow, like I'm sort of making this, gosh, I remember back when I was in high school, like I was told I was talking too quickly and too pushy and nobody liked me. And so I'm not a psychologist, obviously, but I ask a lot of right questions to get them to think about, this is really not about being pushy. And what I can tell all of you is that, I know that so many health coaches have this drive in their heart to be passionate and authentic. And this is not about selling the next product or thing that you don't need that you're going to put on your shelf for the next 10 years. This is about offering someone who already wants and needs what you have to offer the opportunity to change their life. And people are bombarded with messages constantly. So if you are not being proactive with your marketing and being visible, you are doing a disservice to the world and to your mission and to that person. So you have to reframe in your mind that this is not about being pushy. It's about proactively communicating, because people have a lot of stuff coming at them. And if you're going to launch your group program and you send one email to your contact list, hoping you're going to get that, no, they might not have read the first email. So keep in mind that if you come from your heart and have a strategy to be proactive, and you can remember that this working with a health coach, a functional medicine health coach, changed my life personally. And I can say that all of you listening, whatever it is you do in your particular field, you are offering someone the opportunity to be happier and more joyful. And as that person becomes happier and more joyful, they bring that with them to each person they meet. And that next person gets a little dose of that love. And then the next person gets that dose. So when you feel that place of not wanting to be pushy, remind yourself it's not about being pushy. It's about already connecting with people who want this and have been waiting for you to show up, and whose life will exponentially get better because of your attention and compassion and accountability.
This is so profound, such wisdom. And I think it applies not only to pursuing an individual client or for someone to join your group program, but it also pertains to looking at medical practices, which are in dire need of support with health coaches. And so they need you. And many people are very scared about approaching medical practices, whether it's integrative, functional, or conventional practices, that they will get turned down, or how do I get the foot in the door? But they are needed. You, if you're listening to this, are needed by the medical community, and you're providing information. You're not just like a salesman coming in and trying to sell them something that they don't need.
And you're there, listen, all these medical professionals, as we all know, there's not a lot of time for patients, and practices are busy and pushed. And you have the opportunity to go in and help someone who's very well-meaning, who wants their patients to get better, to be that person who has the extra time to listen, to look at what they're eating, to help them breathe differently, to figure out what is getting in the way of finding time to move your body. And it's just such a beautiful gift. And many people often tell me too, Sandy, well, I just finished my training, and how could I approach a doctor? I mean, they've been doing this for so long. Why will I offer value? I have nothing else to give. Well, think about it for a second. You work with 5 of their patients who lose the weight and keep it off, who sleep better, who are no longer eating those, 5 cookies and 4 donuts for breakfast, who are, their digestion improves. That doctor is going to be so grateful because of how much he or she or they care about their patients, that they got better. And so I really can't say enough. And listen, I've been a health coach for over 20 years, as you know, and I've seen tens of thousands of lives change.
Yes.
And I have worked with doctors and medical professionals, and I stay in my zone, and I communicate to them and let them know what coaching does and how it helps. And you partner together in a very mutually beneficial way to complement the work that each of you are doing. And health coaches, functional medicine coaching is the future of health. It's just absolutely the case.
Wow. So beautifully said. And this has been such a wonderful conversation. I know that our listeners have learned a lot, and they're going to want more. Where can people find you?
Yes, you can find me at robertnotter.com, and there'll be some other resources listed here with the listing for our podcast. And you can find me on Facebook, Robert Notter, but just go to robertnotter.com. I'm there, and there's actually a free class you can download on how to get your marketing, your mindset in gear. And just remember that there is no one else on the planet like you. And you're here listening today because something about what we're sharing spoke to you. And you're a gift to the world. And don't discount what you have to offer, because the work that you do is changing lives. And as each of your clients or patients get better, then all of us collectively in the world are getting better. And the world needs you now more than ever. So you can do this, and the universe is on your side. The world's on your side. And I'm so delighted, Sandy, to be here to support you and your community. Thank you again.
Oh, thank you. This has been a wonderful conversation. To be continued. You provide so much wisdom for our audience. So I cannot thank you enough.
My
Bye
pleasure.
now.